we started talking about Justin Bieber and Coachella. Neither one of us are like believers, but I was like, I think I am now.
I think we're in the club now.
I was like showing my kids. I was like, but it's him when it's younger, and now it's him, and he's singing to him, and like it's all coming together. Let's talk about Taylor Swift. I don't have to have had any of that lived experience, but there are moments and words that she shares when I was like, oh, but that is exactly what I felt like when my high school boyfriend dumped me. That is exactly what it felt like when someone took credit for work I had done.
And she's also so into creating her own lore, her own world building. The words like eras and 13, there are things you know if you're a Swiftie that would not make sense if you're not a Swiftie.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of different brand phrases that if you love the brand, that makes sense. And if you don't like it, you're like, I don't know what that means. And that's how we should be operating, to create our own little worlds, to create differentiation from larger brands and from each other.
This series is like everything I've ever wanted to talk about recorded. So we're like pulling off the masks, we're telling stories. I want to talk more about the things that like I'm 100% obsessed with and hyper fixated on. So who better to bring in the Katys into this conversation? Because like the more we bring in the behind the scenes talk of like, what are you really talking about behind the scenes? Whether it is our favorite things to talk about, pop culture or romantasy, world building, like these are actually the things that fuel our content for ourselves, but also for our clients too, like building that world of demand. So one of the things that the three of us love to talk about besides like romantasy, pop culture, is like what is happening in like storytelling and how do we build connection through stories. This is something you talk about all the time and you're so good with. And you and I got to just go for a quick walk, and I don't even remember how we started talking about it, but we started talking about Justin Bieber and Coachella and just like the hero journey and the arc, and just like neither one of us are like believers, but I was like, I think I am now.
I think we're in
like,
the club now.
I think I'm on that level. So like what pulls you in to that, and like why do you also like get so obsessed with this?
Well, you know, I love good books, good movies, good music, and I get obsessed with like the story behind the story. And so I've never been like a believer. He was a little bit like after my time. I've never like disliked him.
Yeah.
But I followed his journey. He's had a lot of vulnerability in his story, a lot of public messy moments, kind of like Taylor Swift, who you guys know I love. And so I just saw this clip and I was like, I have to go look this up on YouTube. And it was him singing on the Coachella stage and people freaking out with a video of his old YouTube videos of him singing as like a kid. And I just like started bawling.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, because it was like that talking to your younger self. Weird tangent, but stick with me.
Yeah.
I actually started sobbing when the first part of Wicked came out in the movie, spoiler alert, when she's falling, when Elphaba's falling, and in the reflection of her falling, like to her death kind of, she sees the reflection of her younger self. And I made it through the whole movie, almost 3 hours, and I just started crying because you just see this love and gentleness.
Yeah.
And so that's what I got obsessed with Justin Bieber. And I was like, oh my, like immediate tears, just like in the theater at Wicked. And it was like him bringing us on that journey of like, look who I used. And it was not in an arrogant way.
Yeah.
Of like, look where I'm at now. It was so real and it was so honest. And so I just was like, I'm obsessed with the vulnerable parts of the stories, or like the messy stories behind like our favorite movies. And we talked about that today at the workshop about like the messy breakups and the public stuff that's happened with our favorite stars and those world builders like Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber. And so them, you know, bringing this attention to that younger version, we can all do that to ourselves personally and in our businesses. So,
and what do you think that like, it's just like it drives the emotion, and I hyperfixate too, where I was like showing my kids, I was like, but it's him when it's younger, and now it's him and he's singing to him, and like it's all coming together. But like, what do you think that does for people? And because it is such like, it's free to tell that story, right? Like it literally like costs nothing for you to show that. And when you're, especially like, I love just like the duality of like all the performers at Coachella, like living their best life, paying for all of these like sets and dancers. And then you just have this vulnerable moment, and arguably like what's living on from Coachella, like that's the moment that's living on. And we can use that to extract that in our brands and in our storytelling. And like, it's 100% free to go on Instagram and like share that story, share your story.
Well, and I think too, and I'll pass this over to you, but I also think that like today when we were talking with folks in the room, people were like, oh, I feel bad if I share this moment of like where I would look hypocritical because I'm struggling with something that I teach.
Yeah.
And it was like, but that's not how we look at people.
Yeah.
We connect more, and that's actually what makes you an expert. Like, it meant so much more that he was singing to his younger self when we've watched him go through this journey. So if it's always the highlight reel on social, or like the business only copy, like I say, like if there's no storytelling, there's no real language. It's just like business only. Like it's got to be profesh on the website and like very like whatever. That's not what people connect to, and it's the opposite that makes you an expert. Because if we hadn't seen his journey, it wouldn't matter as much.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Well, it's just interesting because when I was listening to you guys talk, I was like, well, the thing that I find so appealing about that is the cringe. Like, you actually are so excited to see. Like, I have old home videos of me where I'm literally like dancing in the driveway to Debbie Gibson. I mean, talk about dating yourself, you know, but it's just like, I think about past versions of me. In the moment, I was like, I'm untouchable. Look at me, right? And then I was probably in my teenage years, and I can't believe that's so embarrassing. And now in my 40s, I look back, I'm like, what a cool thing to have the confidence to just be like, you know what, dance like no one's looking. And I realized, because I had this personal experience where I like was in this corporate role, and I was sort of conforming to what I thought corporate was. And there was just, I like stopped expressing my joy about things. And part of that is environmental, right? Like, you have to be certain. There are great corporate experiences where you walk in and you can have those relationships, and there are terrible entrepreneurial experiences.
Yeah.
But where I am now is so appreciative that we can have a conversation about Bieber or Taylor Swift or Formula One, or like dressing, you know, like you're at the red carpet, all of these things. And again, it's just in the way, like, I feel joyful when I see people experiencing joy, and it's so contagious. And what I realize now is that for me, like, my barometer for cringe is if I think you are doing something that is inauthentic, if I think you're being performative, I can understand it on a human level. Right? Like, I can be like, oh, you're showing up that way because you're still feeling like you have to have the mask on. But I've evolved to a point where, like, I don't tolerate that in my personal life. I don't tolerate it in my feed. And the number of people I have unfollowed in the last year is shocking, because I'm like, I just want the people who are loving life.
Yeah.
And no, like, Justin Bieber's got problems. Taylor Swift has problems. Every celebrity, every brand has problems. And you know that. But when they're having fun and being unapologetic about it, it's so contagious.
So let's talk about Taylor Swift for a minute,
please.
because
Can we?
I think the thing is, like, what I want people to understand is drawing inspiration from outside of this like box of the sameness where just like everyone is like this carbon copy of each other. And that's why we're like sitting here at Icon Live. We're about to go into Elevated After Dark. And that really is like, in the past year, I really have challenged myself to like take up innovation a notch, drawing inspiration from like our musical artists, honestly, and like other brands having nothing to do with the online business space, because I was just so tired of everything in the space. So like, let's talk about Taylor Swift, because I know you too. Like, I think she's a genius. I love her. I'm not a Swiftie in the way that you two are Swifties, but like, when I Voxered you both, I was like, all right, research, like, Taylor, is she always creating from pain? Is she creating from pleasure? Like, where are you at? And you both had like such great dialogue about it. But what do you think we have to learn from her / other, like, just like taking the blinders off and just like looking elsewhere?
Yeah. Well, I know Katie's going to do a great job putting it through the storytelling lens. I'll just be on the receiving end. And, you know, again, like we were talking about with these other people, you see these stages of how someone has evolved. And of course, the 15-year-old was singing about things that were just like more naive and like very relatable. Everybody has their first broken heart. Everybody gets in a fight with their mom or dad. And those are beautiful. But then you realize they're for everyone, so they're for no one. And Katie and I mean, we all have, but Katie and I have like dissected Taylor Swift albums. And again, I agree with you. You do not have to be a Swiftie, but from a lyrical standpoint, I think one of the things I said was like, I don't have to have had any of that lived experience. I've never toured on the Eras Tour. I've never had it. I've never been in the Grammys. I've never had my heart broken in front of millions of people. But there are moments and words that she shares when I was like, oh, but that is exactly what I felt like when my high school boyfriend dumped me. That is exactly what it felt like when someone took credit for work I had done. So it's like these moments where this idea, and I'm really like redefining the word relatable, and it's not there yet, but this has been coming to me a lot. Like the idea of being relatable. I think a past version of me thought, well, that means I have to have a sameness. You have 3 kids, I have 2 kids, therefore I cannot relate. Or like you live on the West Coast, I live on the East Coast, therefore I cannot relate. But the concept is just so much broader than that. It's like, okay, do we have experiences that made us feel a certain way? Or can I tap into that emotion of like when she's talking about, and again, like her lyrics have gotten so specific. That's my point. Instead of being like, oh, a broken heart, my first love, going to the dance. Now it's like, you know exactly who she's talking about. If you're deep in the lore, you're like, oh, that's Maddie Healy. Yeah. Oh, that is Travis. You know, that is Calvin. That is like, you go through the list. So again, it's like the specificity takes you to a place where you're like, I know enough about what she was experiencing that now I can put myself into that exact moment when my Calvin and my Travis, and it's not all about heartbreak. Like, let's not centralize it around men, but like that same experience. And I said to you in the Voxer, I was like, well, I feel like she also is processing it in real time. Or like she's angry right now. So she's writing an angry thing about how she feels. And she's also not like putting that on the back burner and never releasing it. And she's like, you know what? There are a bunch of people that are not going to like this. And that, like, for me, that's the takeaway that I have for Taylor. It's just like, you can say it in real time. And even if your position shifts later, that way that you felt was so acute that the person who's now experiencing that, even if you've moved on, is like, oh my gosh, she gets me.
You stole like 1/3 of my thunder, but it's okay. To answer your question, so 3 things come to mind as far as like breaking it down into like key takeaways from how I would look at Taylor Swift and like talk about business. Cause I get that. I bring up that example a lot. Yeah. People are like, okay, she's like not relatable, or she's not a small, like a small business owner, but there are still key takeaways that I think we can emulate, which I think was like where that question was coming from in Vox. The first thing I was going to say was she's so specific. Like she's not talking about even her first crush. It's so high school, and it's about the, like those feelings of being in high school with the guy that she's with now in her late 30s. Like, so even that is like, she's so specific. The second thing I was going to say is she writes for Swifties, for her people. And she's very much like, if you don't like me, that's fine. She's not trying to attract the non-Swifties and be like, oh, if you like so-and-so and so-and-so, or you don't like pop music, I'm trying to get these. She doesn't care. So she's going for her biggest fans. And she's also doing it for herself. And she talks about how she takes her fans along with her. Like, we had all the stuff in high school that was still kind of funny and maybe a little naive, but it's still fun to put on if you're having like a petty day, like some of us do sometimes. And then she has stuff where like she went from like high school to like, dive bar on the East Side, where she's like in New York and she's, in her career. Like, we grew up with her, or if you've experienced her later in life, like you still like have those different eras that you relate to. So she's very specific, and she's writing for people that are going to come with her or join her later and become the biggest fan. And she's also so into creating her own lore, her own world building. So the words like eras and 13 and all the clues and stuff, like she's very into, like, that is like, there are things, if you're a Swiftie that would not make sense if you're not a Swiftie. Yeah. And that should be how all businesses operate. Like, if you look at big brands like Starbucks, Grande, Venti, those sizes of coffees were not ordered or common language until Starbucks made them huge. Nike's just do it. Like, there's all kinds of different brand phrases that if you love the brand, that makes sense. And if you don't like it, you're like, I don't know what that means. And that's how we should be operating, to create our own little worlds, to create differentiation from larger brands and from each other.
So good. And that's the thing about like what we're trying to show you or demonstrate to you is like each one of us is so like lit up and like passionate about these things. And I think sometimes it's really easy to just like go all in on your business and forget those parts of you that like love other things, and thinking like, no, it's business. I'm just going to like go all in on business. But like part of building your world and part of building your brand is finding those like outside things that like light you up, and then bringing people together who love to talk about those things. And I think that's what we have done, and that's what we'll continue to do, and having these great conversations just like around world building. I don't know if you have anything else to add or just to like bring to the table, but just being able to say like, hey, like let's have these great conversations. We share these values. This is what we're obsessed with right now. From everything, like we just went upstairs to redo makeup and get changed, and we're like talking about romantasy one second. The next second we're talking about like Justin Bieber. Like that can be part of your brand and your business, and like take that excitement and let people feel that from you.
Yeah, I would just say if you're not doing that, or you're like, oh, that's too personal. And I'm not saying you have to share like whatever your thing is. I'm just saying like you can choose like how you want to let people in. But if you don't do that, it's very likely that your messaging from like a brand standpoint is kind of like just the facts, ma'am, or like business only copy type of thing, where there's no personality. So I went to a website last night. It's a mortgage website, and I was looking at this website, and they had an About Us page. And the About Us page is all about the customer journey and all about what they give to the customer. But there was nothing about like why they're in mortgage, or if it's a family-owned business, or if it's a, you know, all of that. And I was like, oh, I'm missing like this connection to like how long you've been doing it, or do you have kids? Do you live in the Northwest? Do you live in the East Coast? And so I think you're missing that if you're not, if you're worried that you know, like bringing in those parts of your personality is going to make it something that, you know, that's too vulnerable. And it's like actually talking about your journey and things you like are going to attract your people to you more than
people want to feel that from you now.
Yeah, I think just what came up for me though is like the idea of inclusive, exclusive. Like I am so allergic to clicks. And it's such a fine line of like, you know, feeling like you're shut out or not invited to a club, and also just feeling like you're part of something that's so immersive.
Yeah.
And I do think that's a fine line to walk. But you were talking, you know, upstairs, we were just talking about human design. And it was like through the lens of like, Katy knows what she is. I know.
Yeah.
And we had someone else in the room who was not familiar with it. And just like the curiosity that she had, and like how quickly we were like, come in, you know, and it's like, we're not in the human design business. We're not selling anything. But I had that moment and I was like, I'm so glad this is a culture that we've created where it's like, yes, like, please, you know, not forcing. But it's like, I don't like that feeling of being like, I would love to learn more, but your exclusivity is actually making me feel afraid to be like, well, what is Coachella? Or, you know, and I think like that's the lens for business too, is like, when you're enthusiastic about it, people will naturally be like, oh, so wait, what do you do? Tell me more. Instead of you being like, the rope is here, I'm the bouncer, you're lucky if you get in. I just only want to be around the energy of like, oh my gosh, that sounds really cool. I've never heard of it. Tell me more. And that happens with business. I've seen it happen with you, Nicole. People be like, what do you do? Tell me more. What's this event you're putting on? And if you made it like, oh, you literally can't get in the door if you're not a client, then I don't think it would have that same energy.
Yeah. I think just to like wrap it up, I think what we're all saying here in different ways, similar ways, but different, is just like, have more freaking fun in your business and draw inspiration and let people connect and feel the real you and let them into your world. And really like give yourself the permission to make your world something people want to be a part of. And that comes with like levity, with fun, with obsession, and just not taking yourself so seriously anymore.
I mean, as Justin Bieber would say, hallelujah.
Oh my gosh, we can end it there. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.